Hey everybody, just wanted to drop by and share with you a couple of things that you're going to need to know. So at this point in your training, you should be about ready to write a listing agreement out. And so I want to show you some of the things you're going to need to do that. Um, you perhaps know a little bit about the property, but you probably don't have all the information. You may not have been to the property, but you've done some good investigating on the phone and you have asked the right questions. So you know the condition of the property, you know how big it is, how many bedrooms and bathrooms. It's real important as you interview that potential client over the phone that you get as much information as you can prior to going to the property so that you have what we call good comparables when you go out there. You want your house, the subject property as we call it, to be as similar to the comparables that you're pulling from MLS and from the property records as possible. So remember when you're doing this exercise that it is truly apples and apples. So if your property is in excellent condition, you should be looking at homes that are in that same condition when you work to compare them for the purpose of pricing. So let's take a quick exercise through this. So what would happen is I would come into back office, myflroffice.net. By this stage, you should have your account and you should have be familiar with how to use this. If you're not, there's a training tab here, which I'm referencing currently on the screen, where all of our videos are housed to be able to train you on how to use this. If you haven't done that, you need to do that prior to doing this exercise for the purpose of listing a property and doing the listing paperwork. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to jump into the Listing Seller Forms Wizard. This is our software that will allow you to answer some basic questions and to be able to create all the correct paperwork for your transaction. So community property type, we're going to say in this instance that it's a home without an HOA, a homeowners association. If it had a homeowners association, you would check yes. Will Crown Title Agency be handling the closing? In this instance, we will say yes, that they will. Was the property built before 1978? We will say no for this exercise. We're going to assume this property is a little bit older, a little bit newer, and does not need the lead-based paint disclosure. Is the property in a 55 to 62 plus community, meaning is it housing for older persons? For this exercise, we're going to say no. Now, if any of these are yes, then it will generate additional paperwork automatically that you will need to have signed by both the buyer and the seller. Are the sellers U.S. citizens? This is important. Why? Because if the sellers are not U.S. citizens, there are additional tax ramifications to them selling their home and making a profit. Those ramifications and costs should be explained to them through their accountant. So if they ask you for percentages and stuff like that, you certainly need to refer them to their CPA, to their accountant, so they can get the most current, up-to-date information. And we want you to be sourcing that information out, not actually sharing what's beyond the scope of your license as a realtor. So are the sellers U.S. citizens? In this case, we will say that they are. And is the property currently in a flood zone? Again, how do you know if it's in a flood zone? There are many resources. There's the county property appraiser's website. There's your favorite insurance company provider. They can look this stuff up. And of course, the seller should be disclosing to you if they currently are required to carry flood insurance. That would be another indicator that they are in a flood zone. And so there's multiple ways to find this information out, but it's important that you answer this as accurately as possible. Remember, you're giving the information that the seller has given to you and that you've researched. So in this case, we're going to say that it's not. After we click the next button, it's going to give us an option to create the listing package, which is what we're going to do. So we're going to create the listing package. It is then going to drop that onto your desktop or into your downloads, depending upon where you select it to go. In my case, it's going to open up in a program called Foxit. And what we're going to do at this time is I'm going to walk you through filling this information out. So at this time on your screen, you should see the full listing package. And the first page that we're coming to here is called the Tillow Respa Integrated Disclosure. What this form does, as you fill it out, you're going to put the property address here. And in doing so, you are going to also put the seller's name here as well. All right, and the seller's name should be taken from the property appraiser's website or from the deed. If you have not spoken to the seller and you haven't looked it up on property record, you're probably not going to know. But it is important that that information be consistent with what is currently on record with not only the county, but with the clerk of circuit court. Name of broker's authorized associate. So that would be you. So you're going to be Sally Agent in this scenario. and then your license number will go here. If you're a broker, it'll be a BK. If you're a sales associate, it'll be an SL. And so we will just do this as an example. All right. Basically, this just authorizes the title company and any other named closing agency to furnish settlement statements to the broker or broker authorized associate. So this is what allows you to be able to look at those final numbers, what we call the closing disclosure and or the HUD statement. The title company can request this. You would also want to have obviously your client sign this, and this you can provide to the title company. All right, let's move on to the residential listing agreement. This is really the nuts and bolts of what you're going to be doing here. And I just want to share with you a couple of things about it. So if you'll notice, I populated the name John Doe, and the system automatically put that information in there for me. I do want to explain, though, this section over here called tax identification number. This is commonly misunderstood. So the tax identification number is not the same as the parcel ID. I'll say that again. The tax identification number for the property is not the same as the parcel ID. The parcel ID is the identifier for that particular piece of property with the county. The tax identification number in this exercise is actually for the seller. So if the seller is a corporation or a business, they will have registered a TIN number or tax identification number. But in this case for John Doe, he does not have that. He's not a business. He's a private seller, an individual. So we would not have anything here for the tax identification number. The next field that we come to here, we see his address. We also see the list price of the property. And so for this exercise, we're going to list the property at $150,000. Now, let me just say this. It's perfectly okay if you leave this list price blank. In fact, I probably would encourage you to do that so that you can present to the seller your thoughts and opinions and research on what the property should be listed at, but it should really be a meeting of the minds when you go to the property. So in many cases, I will leave this blank and I will write this in when we get to the property because I want the seller to have input on this, as it is their property that they are selling. We are merely helping facilitate that. All right, your list date, we typically like to offer 6 months of listing exposure. This gives us time to market the property, to show the property, to do all that we need to do. But that again is negotiable, so you can put that for anything up to 12 months, but it cannot exceed 12 months because of Florida law. So you can put that listing term in previously, or you can write that in when you get to the property. Either way is fine, but this will be the term. Now, I want to throw a caveat in here. This list date does not have to be the same date that they sign. So in many cases, you'll get somebody signing today, but you want to go live tomorrow. That is okay. Just be sure you check with your local association and MLS provider to be sure that you're complying with all of their rules as it pertains to signage and marketing the property. So I just wanted to add that in there. All right, commission will be written in here as X%. So you guys agree on a specific commission amount, whatever that is. There will also be the $250 broker admin fee. That's paid directly from the seller through the title company to Florida Luxury Realty, not in conjunction with the commission. It's a fee that Florida Luxury charges for the purposes of post-closing costs, like storing paperwork, providing unlimited copies to the seller post-closing. We also store it beyond the required date by the real estate commission, which is 5 years, but we store it on our server indefinitely so that they always have copies of that, whether the agent still resides with Florida Luxury or not. So that's a benefit to your seller. They're just paying for that storage up front. The amount of commission that you share with the buyer's agent should be something that you and the seller really talk about and make a decision. So in this instance, we're going to share Y with the seller's agent, okay? We're using these letters as examples because I don't want to lock anybody into a specific commission amount. Make sure you refer to your broker and to your policy manual for commission criteria, and that's always important. Okay, we're going to have the exclusive right to sell the property. So as the broker, Florida Luxury Realty retains the right as the only broker to sell that property. However, we are agreeing in writing on the above line that we will work with cooperating brokers. So if another brokerage brings a buyer's agent, we will share a portion of the commission with that other agent. I get this question a lot. Does it have to be exactly half? The answer is no. That is something that you are going to negotiate with your seller. And I do encourage you, though, and I want to make this point, I hope you guys write this down, you should be offering a strong buyer side commission. And what I mean by that is, if you're going to get X for the property, as a commission, you really need to be looking at how can I offer the most to this buyer's agent. It's really not necessarily about how much money you're collecting for yourself, but it's a matter of how do I best expose this property, and a strong buyer's commission will do just that. But it does not have to be half. It can be any variable that you and the seller agree upon, but once you do offer that, that is what you're bound to, okay? We have the exclusive right to sell. There are some general terms in here that will be covered by this contract, and it's important that you familiarize yourself with them. Obviously, we are always going to act in the best interest of the seller, and we will be offering the property without respect to race, to age, to familial status, to any of those things, because we're going to operate in accordance with state, federal, and local law. If there happens to be an age restriction in the community, then that will supersede based on an agreement with the state. But we're not going to make those determinations. We're going to follow the law. We'll be in the capacity of a transaction broker. As you know, that's how we are functioning. If you wish to be in any other capacity, you must have it waived by the seller, and you also must have approval from your broker. The seller agrees in paragraph 4 here to pay the broker compensation plus the admin fee. So that's really pretty cut and dried. And the commission will be due to the broker if the broker performs their duties of procuring a buyer and of moving the home towards closing. Compensation is earned and payable on or before settlement in the event the transaction is entered into and the prospect fails or refuses to consummate the transaction through no fault of the seller, and the seller elects to retain the earnest money in full satisfaction of the default, then the seller agrees the broker shall be entitled to 1/2 thereof, but not exceeding the brokerage commission. So understanding the compensation portion of this is important. So it's important that you read through this listing agreement and that you understand what it is. Also, we're here as a resource for you if you don't understand compensation. But to summarize all of this, once you as the listing agent perform your duties, that is when commission is due to the broker, which will be shared with you. So understanding that is important. All right, conditional termination. So this is a scenario where you've listed the property, you've paid for photography, you've marketed it, you've put it in the digital magazine, and then the seller decides, you know what, we're just not feeling it, we want to pull the house off the market. Well, in that instance, you've already incurred cost, and so what this cancellation fee does is it allows the agent, you, to recuperate some of that loss through the form of cancellation fee, basically getting them to acknowledge that you've spent money and that they're gonna have to share in some of that if they decide to cancel prior to giving you a full opportunity during the listing period to sell the home. This is a field that can be changed. We have $500 in here as a basic cancellation fee. I know of many agents who charge $2,000. I also know of many agents who charge $0. The decision is yours to both levy this and collect it, and then the brokerage would expect to be paid this by the seller should they decide to cancel the contract with you. If you need additional information about conditional termination, please get with your broker manager or broker support, and we will certainly help you with that. We are going to, the seller is going to provide clean title to the property. They're representing that they have the full right to sell the property. There's no liens or encumbrances, or it's not tied up with another party. Latent defects, the seller understands that it's their obligation to disclose all latent defects. I want to talk briefly about disclosure. If a seller isn't sure, then they should say that they're not sure and use the question mark option in the seller's disclosures. For instance, if they think that it's on septic and they're not sure, they shouldn't say for sure that it's on septic until they've evaluated that, had it checked to make sure it is. We've had situations where sellers have in good faith disclosed things, but really and truly it wasn't the case. So we just ask your sellers to make sure that what they're disclosing is truly what they know. However, if they know something and don't disclose it, that is a big deal. So we want them disclosing in writing every single time. It must be done so to comply with the law. All right, if you're going to place the property in multiple listing service, which I would assume that you are, and you should for maximum exposure, you will check this box. This allows us to place it into multiple MLSs in the surrounding regions, and also allows us to make changes to the listing with the seller's approval. Um, as we move through this agreement, you're going to see some pre-printed stuff that's really there to protect you and to protect the brokerage. But the next section that you're going to come to here in paragraph B is if they want to waive out of MLS for the duration of the listing or for a period of time. So if, for instance, they tell you we want to list it today, but we don't want to go live in MLS for 2 weeks, but we want it available for showing, you would need to waive out of this MLS agreement, and then upon putting it in the MLS, you would need them to acknowledge we were doing so with an addendum to this and initials. All right, virtual office websites. These are places where companies have a presence on the internet where they conduct online real estate business. Does your client want to be a part of that or not a part of that? And so that becomes an issue. There's a good explanation in here about what those websites do, how they can or cannot benefit your seller. We want to expose them to everything possible, but there's also some potential downside to that as well, which you can discuss by reading through this entire paragraph here. The home warranty system, obviously, is it a benefit for your seller to offer a home warranty? Some would say yes, but you want the seller to have full understanding on what a home warranty is, how it can give them some separation from the buyer in the event something breaks after closing and things like that. We have brochures available at our offices for you to take with you on your listing appointments. So please swing by one of your local offices if you need us to send you that information through email. We can do that as well. All right, what marketing services are we going to provide? Are we going to place the home address on the internet? I would say we should, yes, unless there's a reason not to. Broker may advertise where consumers can make comments, like social media and blogs. You'll have to decide if that's somewhere that you want to be able to advertise. I will tell you that many social media platforms now have an opportunity for people to make comments. If you post something to a social media site, there's typically always a comment section below, so be aware of what checking no could add or subtract from your marketing. Broker may advertise where an auto valuation may be posted about my property. We know a lot of websites that post auto valuations, don't we? Without naming them by name in this video, I think we all know who we're talking about. So if you want your property on those websites or you don't, that's a decision that you and the seller will have to talk through. In this instance, for this example, we're going to check yes. The seller's agreeing to provide a home warranty plan, either yes or no. If it's yes, then you'll check yes. If they decide not to, it's no. It can be negotiated later too with a prospective buyer, so be aware of that. All right, broker may post a sign on the property. I think that's always a benefit, so in this instance, for this representation, we will say yes. Broker may install a lockbox for access, and we'll say yes so that other realtors can access the property. And then, are the sellers U.S. citizens? This is an important component because of the IRS obligations, so be aware of that. If this agreement will be construed under Florida law, if litigation arises, the prevailing party will be entitled to recover attorney's fees. So there's some stuff in here. There's some miscellaneous agreements. I do encourage you to read through these. For the purpose of this exercise, I won't go into really great detail about this. All right, so we do need to cover the financing section. So anytime a seller lists a home for sale, there's going to be financing terms that they'll have to either agree or decline to accept. So I would think most sellers would accept cash, probably conventional financing, and if the home is in move-in condition and is safe, we can also offer VA and FHA. Do be aware that you may want to talk to your favorite lender to see if a particular property is excluded from FHA or VA. There are, in some instances, condominiums and things like that, perhaps townhomes that are excluded from being FHA or VA financeable, so you'll need to know that prior to listing. So it's a great idea to call your favorite lender, email them, give them the address of the property. If you have any suspicion that it could be one of those properties that's not financeable in those ways, then you wouldn't want to offer that type of financing in MLS because you could end up attracting a buyer that can't finance the property. So just being aware of that. Then it is critical, we're going to need to get the brokers representing sales associate, the owner's signature, of course, the date of signature, and you'll definitely want to have all of that. You will also need to return a copy to your seller by email, by fax, by mail, or in personal delivery. You just have them initial that they did in fact get the information. Okay. The next section that you're going to come to is called the seller's real property disclosure. And though we're not going to go through the entire disclosure today because I think that that's really more of a seller obligation, I just want to make you aware that the seller's disclosure is provided to you in this packet, and it's going to ask questions about the condition of the home, about permits, and many other things that will cover the value and the sellability of the home. The seller, let me stress this, please write this down, the seller is the only one who should fill this out. Your pen should never touch this. Why? Because once you begin to disclose things in writing, you become liable to the disclosures. Now, as a realtor, if you know something, then you should disclose that. However, this particular document is for the seller to use as a vehicle to disclose. So this will be filled out in detail. All right, so once this entire document is filled out, you're going to save it either to your desktop or to your downloads. And then what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to either place it in our DigiSigner product in back office, which I will show you where that product is kept at this time so that you know. On our home page here in the back office, if you go to myflroffice.net, there is a section here for you to launch your DigiSigner right here in the center where I'm hovering over. If you have not established your DigiSigner account, you should do so at this time, and you should always log in through back office. What DigiSigner is going to give you the ability to do is it's going to give you the ability to send out digital signatures. So if you for instance, if you're not able to physically meet with the seller, they're going to be able to digitally sign through DigiSigner product. The other tool we have in here is called eSign Management, which will do a similar tool for you as well in terms of getting the contract digitally signed. So be aware of that. Okay, we do have a video on our YouTube channel, which is our Florida Luxury Online Campus, that walks you through the use of DigiSigner. If you need to do that, we also have a tutorial in DigiSigner that will walk you through that as well. So you need to be aware of that. All right, the next exercise we're going to do is we're going to jump over here into Matrix. And now we've identified the property, and we are ready to kind of take a look at what we think comparables might be. We have all the information on where the house is and all, but now we need to kind of price it. And we're going to do this prior to going out and visiting with the seller. So I just want to kind of walk you through how these steps might go. So we're going to take a look here. We've got our criteria filled out. So I do recommend that you check active, pending, and sold. You want to go back about 90 days on each of these sections. Then you want to do your total bedrooms and total bathrooms. I did a range of 4 to 5 and 2 to 4. Just to come up with some specific properties. And then what I want to do here is I want to come over to the map feature once I've put in all my criteria, and it's going to kind of show me the map of the area. So in this instance, we're looking at what we call Spring Hill proper, or the main part of Spring Hill, a city located in Hernando County. And you can see that I have some different homes popping up here on my map. This is incredibly valuable because when you're trying to search a specific neighborhood, this tool will allow you to zoom in on a neighborhood, draw a polygon around the neighborhood, and actually see what is happening in that neighborhood in terms of sales, active listings, and pending properties. So this is a really great tool. So for this exercise, I'm going to be zooming in on the Elgin Boulevard area and all the surrounding streets. Now, because real estate is hyper-local, it is really important that you know if a subdivision or a neighborhood is similar. In this particular exercise, this entire area is very constant. I know that as a local real estate professional. So if you're working in an area that you don't know, it's important that you have somebody that you can rely on in that area to tell you if there's a value difference between neighborhoods. So that's why it's important, and we really encourage you to work in areas that you're very strong in. You can only best represent your client when you have good local real estate knowledge. Don't be afraid to partner up with another agent that understands and knows that area. You'll do your seller justice when you're marketing outside of your preferred area or comfort zone. All right, so in this case, we're going to look at a couple of these properties. So this particular property sold for $164,000. This one sold for $244,000, this one for $255,000, this one for 258, this one for 220, this one's pending at 204. So we've bracketed these properties to kind of get a flavor for what the neighborhood is doing. If I wanted to, I could always click on these properties to see the specifics about them. So this is a 2-story property, 2,300 square feet. This one is 2,300 square feet. So we're just getting a sense for what things are listing and selling for in that neighborhood. Now let me say this, in your criteria, and I'm going to go back to this criteria tab, the smaller that you make these this range, so right now I'm 1,700 to 2,500 square feet. If I were to change this, for instance, to 2,000 square feet to 2,400 square feet, my results would change. When I go back to this map, you're going to see that I'm going to have a different amount of results coming up. Now, why this map is so helpful is because it gives you a really good aerial shot of the neighborhood that you're going to be working in. So if you can tell, my homes, my total number of homes did reduce. Okay, so this is a great exercise. So what you might want to do is there's a polygon feature up here at the top. And if you click on this polygon, you can actually draw a line around the properties that are in your area here, and then you connect the polygon here, and what's going to happen is you're going to have a list of results. And the results are going to be listed here. So these are all the properties that are available for me to look at. So I've got 3 actives, I've also got a pending, and I've got several solds. So when I'm looking at the price range here, I'm getting a real sense for the fact that, you know, homes are selling anywhere between 185 and it looks like one of the higher sales here was 255. So what I need to do now is I need to look at my subject property and see, you know, if my subject property is close to these. Now for this, these were all 4 bedrooms that sold. My subject property in this example is a 3. So, you know, I need to make sure if I'm doing this that I'm looking at 3 and 4 bedrooms. The results I got were only 4, very likely because of where I put that square footage. And let me give you an example. If I come back here and I reduce this square footage down to 1,500 to 2,000, then I'm probably going to get a different set of results. Am I not? Yeah. So see, I got different results, and these homes are smaller, so they tend to be in, you know, in smaller homes. They tend to be a little bit less value. So if I were to go to results here, I would see something different, right? So now I'm seeing the value drop. So I don't know why these didn't change. I apologize for that. For some reason, it still gave me 4 bedrooms. Let me go back and look at this again. Go back to my criteria. Oh, that's why, because I didn't change this. So what I want to do is I want to go to 3 bedrooms, and then I want to go back to my map, and I want to look, and I should get some different results. Here we go. Okay, so now my results are giving me 3 bedrooms, and you can see there's a little bit of a price difference here when I go to the 3 bedrooms. Now, let me just throw this out there. There's not a lot of an adjustment when it comes from 3 to 4 bedroom. This is coming directly from state certified appraisers who we have interviewed and had teach in our offices. Where you see the biggest price jump, folks, is when you go from 2 to 3 bedroom. So understanding that. So anyway, I do recommend that you do this. Another way that you can search for criteria is also, rather than doing your map search, is also to type in the subdivision name. So if you have a subdivision that you are trying to compare property in, it's a great resource to type in the subdivision name here in this category that we're looking at right here. This will give you results in in that neighborhood there. Okay. All right. So the last thing I want to do before I let you run here is I want to come to the county property appraiser. So you might be listing in Citrus, you might be listing in Hernando, could be listing in Pasco, Pinellas, Hillsborough, but each of those counties respectively have their own property appraisers website, and they're all a little bit different, but they really do contain a lot of the same information. In this exercise, we talked that we were looking in the Elgin area. So this particular home is a 3-bedroom, 3-bath, right in that valuation in terms of assessment that we looked at when we looked at the MLS. But there's some really important information that you need to be aware of here. You've got the owner's name, And as you can see, there's two owners. You've got the mailing address. You've also got the site address where the property is. You've got the legal description here. So this is something that you would need if you were to execute a contract. You've got all of your taxes here from the previous years dating all the way back to 2015. You've got the current assessment. So you've got a lot of really good information here. This is also a required page for our back office for your compliance to be printed off. So make sure you're familiar with this. Anytime you go to list a property, first thing you should be doing is looking at this page and researching it. You can look at some of the tabs here so you can see what some of the sales were. This was likely for the property itself because this is a much lower price. You can look at the land size. You can see that this is a 15,000 square foot lot. And you can see if any businesses have ever been registered to the property. You've got a lot of different stuff here, but you know the building characteristics. This is an 1,850 square foot home, 3-bedroom, 3-bath. So if I am going to compare this home to ones that have sold, I need to be about 20% more or less in terms of square footage, right? So maybe 1,600 to 2,000, and I need to be similar in bedrooms and bathrooms. So I want to do 3 and maybe 4 bedrooms, and then maybe 2 or 3 bathrooms. This one also has a 3rd car garage. I can tell that because I'm seeing it in the photo here. So that could add some value as well. How much value depends upon what other 3-car garages are selling for. And I just want to throw this last little piece at you real quick before we finish up. I get this call a lot from agents and they say, well, what does a pool add or what does a bedroom add? And the answer to that question is it's not finite. It depends strictly upon the following. If 3 homes in a neighborhood sold with pools and 3 homes sold without, and all other things are relatively the same, meaning updates, meaning size, square footage, bedrooms, and all, the difference in those sales is the value the pool provides. So for instance, if the 3 pool homes sold for $280,000, but the 3 non-pool homes sold for $260,000, we're seeing an appreciation or a value on those pools of $20,000. Consequently, if the pool home sold for $280,000 and the non-pool home sold for $275,000, we've only got a $5,000 value on the pool. And I think a lot of times we want a number like, a pool adds $10,000. Well, it just doesn't work that way. You've got to look at, simply put, you've got to look at what the pool truly adds to value to the home in that area. Sometimes a pool or a bedroom or a detached garage adds a lot of value. In other cases, it adds almost none. And I guess in rare cases, it could actually be a value, a depreciation in some cases. So you need to really just look at the neighborhood. This tool will help you a lot if you just draw a polygon around the neighborhood you're searching in and look at what is selling, look at what is sold, and compare it to your property. You'll be great. So at this time, your exercise will be to go into your back office and to complete the competency exam, the task exam that you've been given through the back office and through your onboarding email, and be sure that you complete that and be sure that you send that to your broker for review, or send it to the admin to forward to the broker for review, because we'll need to make sure that you are up to speed. If you have questions about this or you want additional information, I do encourage you to reach out to your office staff so that we can get you taken care of. I appreciate you watching this video today, and I look forward to you getting many listings and fully understanding how the process works and making it a great, great career. So thank you so much for your time, and we will talk to you later.